All right, March is over. Damn near. It's wild to think. We still got a couple days. We still got some things hitting us. Still a couple things coming through yet. But we're going to start talking a bit about what April is going to look like. And again, these have been so interesting because I keep thinking, okay, well, they'll get a little bit more solid as time goes on through the months, and that's not necessarily happening. It's been interesting as I'm trying to tap in and, get a sense of what April's going to kind of look like possibly as an energetic for the general. And then, of course, a little bit maybe what's going to be an effect for individuals. And again, so I'm going to just kind of reference back to what kind of happened this month, a little bit of how it kind of felt a little bit split. And now, hopefully, if you're listening to this, maybe you can kind of look back, think back on this a little bit again, too, of where, okay, so March was kind of this reflect time in the beginning, choosing kind of what do you want to be consistent with, what do you want to kind of focus on, and the more you kind of put your energy there and became more consistent with, the more you kind of could feel this build. And it wasn't necessarily taking off until we kind of hit mid-March, where I was calling it this big wave, and the wave was taking you no matter what, whether you're prepared for it or not, but it was coming, and it kind of it gave momentum in a way, right? Whether it felt like real momentum in the physical, maybe not necessarily, but this momentum where it felt like it was getting solidified in some kind of way, and that it was going to be like this action eventually kind of piece where it was kind of feeling like, okay, I feel the momentum with this now. And so it feels a little bit like, that definitely felt a bit like the case for certain people, even for myself. Like, I was deciding on certain business things and I was still a little bit unsure of where maybe I wanted to go with it. And then as I was kind of focusing more and more on it, was starting to become clearer and clearer. And now I feel like, okay, it's really time to take action on these things now where I can take action. And so, I've been trying to get that really rolling and like really choosing that and to stay focused on that. So while we ride this wave into April, it continues, I guess, in a way. So the thing that's really interesting about April, though, it feels like, and even now at the end of March, like today, we still got a couple more days, so it's not quite yet done. So we still have a couple things happening with some shifts, this energy and all these things going on over the next couple days yet. But it feels as though, like, especially I noticed today where this became really clear, where a lot of things have risen to the surface, and it's like the universe is asking one last time, how are you going to respond to this? How are you going to react to this? Because if you truly choose you're done with it, that's it, it's done. And it's not going to come back in the same way or same kind of intensity, if at all, right? So it's an interesting time because I think a lot of people are like, oh my God, this just feels so disastrous. Everything going on in the world right now, everything that might be going on in life right now. And not enough for looking quite far enough ahead, I don't think. And not enough for quite looking close enough inside to determine what it is that they really do actually want to let go of. Because the thing about it is, I think a lot of people's fears in certain aspects have come up to the surface and they're kind of being asked to be looked at. And so many people don't want to look fear in the eye, basically. But the thing about fear is it's just our teacher. Honestly, the things that scare you the most are probably the things you really do need to look at, right? Or if it's scaring you to take action on, you probably should take the action. So it's kind of this reflective mirror that's come up one more time, but it doesn't even feel like it's necessarily for individuals. It feels like even on the global basis, if you kind of look at where we're at right now, and I mean, obviously being in Canada, we've got a lot of things happening in government at the moment, and not just us in Canada, the US just elected in Trump again. So there's a lot happening for change in a lot of different places. And I mean, that's just Canada and the US, never mind what's going on across seas still, right? So there's this big uproar of a jumbled kind of like shake up that seems very final if we want it to be. And so the only way I can see this necessarily feeling like it's going backwards is if people chose the same thing over and over again. But to me, from the energetic standpoint of even where we are as a collective, it doesn't feel like that to me. It feels as though people still want change, even though maybe they're not totally conscious of that, but they are getting tired of these same things over and over and over again, whether it be in their life or be on the larger perspective of the general collective. So April's going to be a really interesting month to see. What they're showing me is literally you've got the dial in your fingers. And if you can be aware of this dial, your ride will be more from a conscious state of creation, meaning you're going to choose more of what it gets to look like. And if you're not fully aware that the dial's in your hand, you may start twisting it all sorts of different directions and you don't even realize what you're doing to yourself because you don't have the awareness of understanding, looking inwards far enough to realize the dial is actually in your hand. So what I mean by that is like this factor of how much do you want to turn it up and how much do you want to turn it down, to a factor of almost like awareness, right? The more aware you are, the more delicate you can be with your dial, meaning maybe things are a little bit more gentle, or your clarity comes a little bit easier because you're able to kind of see through the fog of all the things that are changing and going on. Again, whether it be in your own life or as a collective general right now. And now some are going to be like, well, how do I find the dial if I don't know the dial is there? Me just telling you the dial is there is me telling you the dial is there. It's going to be there for every single person. You don't need to know what it looks like, and you don't need to know necessarily like any other parameters around it other than the fact that you can be in control of it if you want to, but you also have to be extremely vulnerable to do so. Meaning the fact that if something does come to the surface and you're asking for something else, it's coming to the surface for the reason being you're likely probably going to need to let it go to be able to move into that new identity that you need to be able to attract whatever you're asking for. That's the type of awareness I'm talking about. And if you can be aware about it, again, this is where it gets to be more gentle because you're not cranking up the stereo and not necessarily knowing where the volume button is after you've done that, right? So you're able to tune it a little bit easier to be a little bit more gentle in the way that you move through that process. Now, if you're like been on running with your hair straight back maybe for the last 3 months of this year, or just been maybe even the last little while, or maybe this lunar eclipse has kind of set it all into motion for you where you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm pulling out my hair, all these things are going on. I would suggest for you to stop and have a breath first and to ask yourself why. Ask yourself, why does it all coming up for me right now? Why all right now? What am I not looking at that has presented itself once more to be looked at, to be officially kind of let go, right? It's like I can't even describe to you. This is such a different feeling than, oh, it's just a chance to let things go and, move through your stuff. This is more final. It feels more like this really interesting basis of like, here's the new world. It's being offered to you. It's coming into fruition in your actual physical timeline now. And do you want to be a part of it or not? And if you do, I mean, these things are coming up so that they can officially be moved out and you can become a part of this timeline that most of us would prefer to be on, right? Where it is more conscious living of awareness of self and of the whole, and integrating more of ourselves in these different ways that is a part of our ascension process as being human. Now, it's not to say that you have to go there, but who doesn't want to feel better? Who doesn't want to live in more of a joyous way, right? But you have to be aware to make that choice. Because if you're not being aware, or you're constantly trying to run away from problems or fears or things that are within you still, you're still going to be choosing the old way of living, which means nothing changes, right? And you just continue to suffer and you're continuing in these patterns. Nobody wants to take full responsibility that like our creation is our creation of our life, especially if you're an adult, and the farther away from 18 you get, the more you have been consciously choosing to create what you've got going on. Nobody can influence that. And what I mean by that is claim your goddamn power, like it's a time to claim who you are as a spiritual, highly powerful being right now. And that's what April really feels like. It's like finalizing in this old stuff, maybe from parts of your life or situations or people, whatever it might be. But it's asking you, the universe is basically asking us in certain ways, on certain levels, depending on where you are, depending on what you want to, where you want to go, what you want to do here. You don't even have to know all those details. If you know you just want something bigger, you want something more, that's enough to tell you right now that in April, you can have the choice to finalize it in a certain aspect where it doesn't come back necessarily ever again. Now, for some, it's going to be really, really intense, and it's going to be really, really, really uncomfortable. You thought March was uncomfortable? Oh, you just wait. If you've been aware enough and you used March to be aware and reflect, you've already got the dial in your hand, and you're probably more aware of how to kind of turn it up or turn it down. Meaning, again, what are you deciding for your own life? You don't have to figure out how it's going to happen. You need to decide, who do I want to fucking be? Excuse my French, but really, who do you want to be? Because that is going to determine how much your dial might need to move, right? And the universe will always help you with the dial. You don't have to sit there and play with it to find out what's hot, what's not, right? Because the thing about it is, that's part of ourselves that can help us in this journey as well. So April's going to be a really interesting aspect to, again, focus inwardly. If there's things arising for you, is there's things feeling like they're falling apart, if there's things feeling like, oh my God, I still just don't understand what the hell is going on, that's okay. You take a breath and you decide, okay, why? Why is this happening? What in here am I supposed to let go? Maybe I'm just fucking done with people treating me like this, right? Maybe I'm just done having to explain myself all the time. This is what I'm talking about, taking back your power. Take back the power of your own voice. You get to decide with your own life. Nobody else decides that for you. Now, I feel like a lot of people might be listening on this and being like, well, but I have a partner, I have a family, da 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 da. It's not about them still, though. Because if you claim your own inner power and your voice in a way that makes it so much more authentic for you, actually those things can become a lot easier. Your kids and your family might resist it a bit at first because it's not who they're used to you being. And that's not, how they have an image of you necessarily. But it doesn't mean that they don't adapt and change with you. Obviously, partnership's a little bit different because it takes two to tango. But with kids, they often love when somebody has authentic energy because they resonate so well with that, because that is who you actually are. You're not wearing masks anymore. So April's going to be like that's ripping away of these things that we just don't care to carry any longer. I've had a couple people come to me and be like, I don't know, I thought I dealt with this, right? And they're like, yeah, here it is. It's come back again. It's not really coming back again. That's what I mean. This is different. This is a different energy coming into April. It is like a finalized, if it wants to be done and you choose it to be officially done with it, which means one, you're going to have to react differently. Because if you continue to react the same way you always have, that's telling you right now that wound is definitely not done. Doesn't mean that you don't want to get rid of it though. But this is where that awareness is going to be really important. Because in April, that washover of this big wave and this momentum of this finalizing and letting go of the shit is going to continue into April. I feel like it might even be a good portion of April that this continues to go on for. And then I think in May, it feels like something gets more still and something gets more like, it's almost like the in-between is about the only way I can kind of describe what that feels like. So it's almost like this in-between of reflection and yet this whole new identity in a way that is more who you are, that you want to be, that you want to embrace here than maybe you've ever thought of before, right? And that's where some of this clarity comes from, really looking at what comes up for you and what has even come up for you, even in this end of March, where a lot of this wave has started, and to embrace it in a way that shows you a path you did not even know existed. It's like I keep hearing all these whispers, and I find it really interesting when Spirit starts to kind of do this in this way. And it's like this whispers of the wind. It's like for you to pay attention and notice the wind. And a wind is a wind, right? A lot of us notice a wind because it's powerful, it's strong, you can hear it moving through things, bouncing off of things. But very few people ever notice a breeze. Because the breeze takes an intention of, oh, I noticed that, right? I noticed the trees just slightly moving. If you've got hair, obviously it's easy to notice in your hair, but so many people just don't because it's just so naturally a part of our world. And this is kind of what they're talking about. It's going to be this big amplified kind of creative energy coming from your higher self that's going to whisper like a breeze in a different way. It's going to be a really interesting month, I think. And I know I've said that on some of our others, but this feels more anchored into this new world, a new way of being that is being presented to us in our timeline of right here and now as a whole collective being that is consciously starting to ascend in different ways of the mind, more or less, that we've never really been offered before. I think the thing about 2025 that a lot of people are not really always necessarily recognizing, the year of 2025 is a massive year for us. And it's a massive year for us, not just on the human level, but as a part of the whole galactic universe. It's a massive opportunity for us to choose something very different, but also to excel quite quickly if we do. This is the massive year of change. This is the massive year of the physical parts of this finally starting to be put in play. And enough people need to choose that route to say, we want it change. You don't have to know what that looks like, but you need to decide. We want change, we want betterment, whether it be for myself, from the rest of my years, from the kids, your family, the generations to come. You've got to choose something different. But it's got to start with us first. Because if you can't choose something different for you and be able to move through some of the stuck stuff maybe from your own past, how are you supposed to do that for an entire human collective, right? So this is kind of where we're at. We're coming to these finalized endings where it just feels like it'll fucking be done. And everybody's journey is your own journey. I can't say that everybody's going to be done with every single challenge or problem, because if we were, we wouldn't be here anymore. But it's like this ending to the old shit. And it's a choice. It's always a choice. This is the thing. I can tell you it's all happening. It's all the things. You can still always choose. No. Will it be very comfortable? Probably not. Probably more uncomfortable than it probably ever has been if you want to continue to resist things. But this is also where they keep talking about this whisper of surrender in a different way, that flow. Surrender is not just putting in the white flag and completely losing control of everything, like so many of us believe it might be. Surrendering to a flow is very different. Surrendering to the flow of who you truly are is a path that's already been laid out by you at a higher level. Can you trust that? Can you go with your gut instinct more than your thoughts? It's like this ending a new beginning in the actual physical world as well. I want to talk about that for a hot second because they are showing me some interesting things. Obviously, there is already coming out of a lot of different information. There has been some of this whistleblowing, certain things in governments and whatnot coming to surface, which we knew 2025 was definitely going to have a lot of. But now that we mentioned, if you go back and listen to the 2025 podcast, we talked a lot about technology that is also going to come to the surface. It's also going to be brought back. It's going to be not necessarily new. It might seem new to us in our modern day world right now, but it's not new to the ancients. And it's not new technology that has never been on Earth before. It's being uncovered. One of those things was already just talked about, finally, about the pyramids. Pyramids of Egypt. What they have found underneath the pyramids of Egypt have been able to now say, oh yeah, this is very advanced technology. There's no way that you could have just dug that and put it down in the ground, right? If you don't know about that, go check it out, guys. It's fascinating, and I was so excited to finally see that information come out in a very much more public way that was actually given. Okay, I've always known a lot more about the pyramids myself, just knowing about the energy and the things that exist there. And then, of course, you hear certain things through people that have studied tablets and whatnot, and they often talk about how much more there is to pyramids. But not only that, what's actually buried underneath them and what kind of technology actually lies within that. Okay, so there's a lot coming out, and that's part of what some of this new technology is. The cooler part is, to me, that this is just the beginning. Just said, April's the beginning, right? And I think in April, we're going to start to see a little bit more and more and more about these things coming out. And I think that's going to be part of the big shift that I continue to still feel that's going to happen in June, July-ish time frame. So to recap real fast, because this was a little bit longer one, but I felt like they kept giving me things that felt kind of important for people's understanding, not just for April, but kind of on the larger aspect of things here. So April is a time of become quiet and notice the breeze. Notice what's coming up for you, what's uncomfortable for you, what kind of fears have been up for you. Take note of all of it, because out of all of that is going to likely show you what your other higher self is asking you to let go of so you can move in a different way. Even if you don't have a plan, it's fine. But if you have an idea of maybe you want something different, maybe it's just a simple knowing of like, I know there's just something more. I can't continue to keep doing the way I've been going, right? I've got to change something. And maybe that just takes me deciding that now. March stirred up a lot of this, right? So now it's at surface. We're at the very end of March, and a lot of people are like, what the fuck is going on? Either family dynamics or relationships or stuff with just in you. Emotions, right? Intensity of everything. It's all just kind of brewing back up. But it's here for a reason. The universe says, all right, we've brought it all. How are you going to handle it this time? And keep repeating it. If you do, that's fine. But we now know where you're going to stand in resistance. But at any moment, you can choose to change that. I don't want to say like, this is it. You got to decide now. You can't always change it at any moment. But you might find it gets a bit like time gets weird, where all of a sudden it's, wow, 3 months have gone by and I feel like I haven't really even done anything, right? And I look around at some of the people that I can still see, but maybe don't always have that relationship with. They're really moving. They look like they're moving. It looks like they're accomplishing a lot of things. There'll be always opportunity to see, but you always need the awareness to see it. So coming back to wrap up, you're going to be faced with a lot of the things that have come to surface. Decide, are you done with them? If you are, get brave, have some courage, ask your loved ones and teams on the other side to help you move through and let it go for good. Because it will be more final than everybody thinks it is. And that's exciting because that's telling me that this new world is really being anchored in now. And it doesn't mean everything just continues to repeat. The momentum wave, focus. If you already feel as though, like maybe you're a little bit more like me, where right now I almost feel like an ass because I seem to be in a much better place than some others. And so I haven't really talked about, the excitement I continue to feel, the creativeness that I've been feeling, the like ready to run kind of feeling that I've been getting with that creative flow that I've really been feeling over this month particularly. And it's just like get up and go time to really take some action where maybe I haven't taken as much action before. And that's really exciting and really flowy to me. But for myself, again, just different journeys, right? I have done a lot of work on myself. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I passed it. I definitely have done it and I still continue to do it. But I choose awareness over the ego, itty bitty shitty committee up in the mind, right? And so that allows you to roll. And that, I feel as though my dial has been in my hand maybe a little sooner than what is showing up for a lot of others. But it doesn't mean I'm any better or any, don't put me on a pedestal just because you think I got all my shit together. That's just not always true. So it's just dependent on where you are on your journey and what's going on, right? How are you going to choose to handle it? If it is a lot of challenging things right now, take a breath. Okay, it's all coming up, but why is it coming up? What's trying to move out of my way for something better maybe to come in? Stay focused on those things because April is going to be about that focus, right? So maybe you have been more excited about things or feeling more creative. I would say to you, April would be a good month to continue to follow that because that wave of momentum that's starting here at the end of March, that's going to continue to go through April and it will continue to snowball. Quite literally, it just showed me, the snowball's already started. And once you get it big enough, you can roll that bad boy down the hill and it's just going to keep going, right? It gets to be easier. But you got to put in the reps, put in your consistency, and keep your focus. And then all of a sudden, one day, it just becomes who you are. And you don't even think about it anymore. You've literally just changed your identity and not even realized it. A lot of time, you don't realize it until you look back. And you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I just do that now. I just get on camera and I talk about things. I'm not saying you have to, but that seems to be one of the things that I do see with people right now. Actually creating more authentic content, using their voice to do so, right? So using your voice is going to be another big one. Say it how it is for how you feel is resonant to your own truth, but don't feel the need to try and convince anybody or expect anybody else to necessarily believe you. That's okay. They're allowed to believe whatever they want to believe. But this month, grab your power, all right? Find that spark that is in every single one of us and start fueling it. What do I love? What lights me up? What have I been hanging on to that just needs to go, that's at surface now? Oh, okay, now maybe your brain starts to link a few things. Then you're going to continue to focus on the things that do bring you joy, on the things that do bring you creative. But you need to take action on it. Because if you want clarity, clarity comes with action. If you just sit around and wait for your answer to finally come, guarantee your answer probably came to you and you just never took action on it still. We've all been there. Right? So hopefully that makes sense and resonates in certain ways for you through the month of April, to keep top of mind that, to try and go with the flow of it the best you can, and to just be aware of what is showing up and what do I decide how I want to react. Because the more you see your proof of I do have choice in every single situation, no matter what I feel in the moment, I still can choose something different. Even if it's intense anger, even if it's intense, this frustration or annoyance. Those are really big ones right now, by the way. And I think that for some people, you might see that continue a little bit until they decide, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to let it bother me like that. Why is it bothering me in the first place? Right? Somebody else's words should not bother me to that degree unless I choose to let them. So why am I letting them? That's where you're going to probably see a lot of surface stuff already there too. That maybe you connect even to the end of this month, right? Woo, had that situation go down, right? Maybe it doesn't make sense to you until you get into April, where, the water levels out maybe just a little bit, right? And the intensity of it calms down just a hair. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I get it. So don't try and figure everything out and don't overthink things. Just feel your way through the best you can. Take your moments, breathe when you need to, rest. Rest is important too, listening when you need to rest. And then you continue. It's not going to last forever, but this is a very highly intense year. And I can't say that I can give you a date of when it's all going to end. So may as well make it an adventure, right? Handle it the best you can. The best way you can right now, and then believe that it can always be better in the way that you can even handle things. You got to start small. And you build up. Like I said, next thing you know, it just becomes your identity. You don't even realize it's just part of who you are. So hopefully this is helpful again, and I wish you guys all the best in the next month to come.